Welcome everyone to another episode of DRIVA Deep Dive. We are in London and I have the pleasure to have Tiankai with us now. Tiankai, happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we tried several times to get it kind of coordinated to have you on a session. Finally, it worked out.
Absolutely. We had to go to a different country to meet up, but it actually worked out in the end.
Exactly. So we are actually both from Germany, and yes, but so we had to cross the ocean, come to London, different time zone, but finally we got it done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and we could have actually this conversation in German because you are actually German, but we decide to have it in English for obvious reasons. So the community is mostly speaking English,
Absolutely.
So it makes sense. So yeah, but it would be a bit difficult for me now because we normally talk in German. So, but it should be fine. I will try my best to have the conversation flowing like it used to in German.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tiankai, we start an episode always with a fun fact about a river.
Mm-hmm.
And I select a river that is kind of important for you or somewhere you have either been born or have been raised or have been living and so on. So I, for obvious reasons, took the Spree River from Berlin because
I was just about to say,
you are born and raised in Berlin, Germany.
That's correct, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, did you know that the waterways running through Berlin are in total around 180 kilometers long?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's very long, huh? Okay.
It is quite a distance, I must say. Yeah. So it is going through the city, the different channels, different areas. And most of the time it's a bit hidden.
Mm-hmm.
So people not normally see it. I mean, like 180 kilometers, not everything is really visible. Right. But it tucks through walls and streets and underneath the surface and so on. And I thought that's a good analogy because in many ways that's kind of symbolizes the way data and AI is organized in organization, like a little bit in the shadows, a little bit in silos, somehow still connecting things. People are noticing or not noticing it, but around it is a lot of habits.
Right.
And I thought that's a very good analogy. Also because today we're going to talk a lot about data and AI when it comes to cultural aspect, communication aspect, and making it visible, the architecture and how it is actually connecting us as human beings.
Yeah. I think I have another analogy for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Because having been close to the Spree for a long time, right, there are cleaner and there are more dirty areas of it too. Some places it's a little bit more safer to go into, and some places not. But that's how data works in the companies too, right? Where sometimes it's really fit for use and sometimes it really isn't, right? And
it's
all
true.
part of the same flow, right?
Yeah.
It's just depending on what you're looking for that you can use it or not.
I'm glad that you are using this metaphor because as a local you are allowed to talk about the dirty Spree River. I would have probably offended some people.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah. And now let's get to you. Yeah? I will give a short introduction, although I think most people don't really need to be introduced to you because you are a globally recognized data and AI strategist and I would say thought leader, not of influencer for me, but because you're much more shaping also concepts, ideas. With the books that you were also writing, you have now published two, Humanizing Data Strategy, and now your latest, freshly printed Humanizing AI Strategy. So congratulations to the books. And so you have shaped a lot the data community, the data profession. But before that, you had also your your gained your experiences, and I would say walking the talk heavily in different companies. Adidas is to mention here as maybe one of the most significant ones, where you have been working for more than 6 years. And now you are director of data and AI strategy at Thoughtworks. And that gives you, again, a different angle, a different possibility to share your experience. And yes, so great to have you, as I mentioned already. And yeah, happy to hand over now to you, and to also allow you to maybe introduce you a little bit on top to what I just shared.
Sure. I think on top of the great introduction that you already gave, right, about me, I would say that it all started actually early in my life, already during my teenager years, where I was really fascinated between the connection of creativity and analyticalness, basically, right? And that's why when I decided what to study, I went for industrial engineering. So there was a mix between a business major and a technical major. And I chose the focus on marketing and on database systems. And without knowing it, this is when I graduated, marketing analytics became a big thing, right? So all of a sudden, websites could be measured, social media could be measured, paid media could be measured, all these things. And I went into that area pretty naturally, because it was basically using the things that I learned to actually make a difference.
Yeah.
So that became my entry into the data field, right? I worked a lot with marketing data first, then I expanded into more BI-related data too. Also specifically in Adidas, as you mentioned, I started in the marketing analytics field, but grew more into be a data product owner and a capability lead. And then finally, I switched from the analytics side to the data governance, data strategy side. And this is where I've been ever since, by basically looking at the bigger picture of how all data things fit together, and not only how it's being used for analysis, but also where it comes from and how it's being processed. So yeah, in a way, now also working at Thoughtworks, I like to say that I've seen how things go wrong for data from a corporate use case side, but also now from a consulting side, by having been exposed to different clients. And yeah, it's a lot of things coming together for me, of also how it shapes my thoughts and how I hope I can spread my knowledge and wisdom to others as well.
And something important that either me or you haven't mentioned is that you put a lot of head and heart into sharing.
Great reference.
Your experience and your knowledge. And you're not only very you are very creative. Yeah, I must say. So a lot of people know you for the music that you do, the songs that you write about data governance, and then and you are very I must say, it comes also across when I see your posts on LinkedIn. You have a good taste of humor. So I think a lot of people can also very much relate to your humor, and how you try with some kind of sarcasm also address one or the other data issue.
Absolutely.
And that makes I think you such a great that's actually a question. I think a lot of people who talk to you or approaching you and you actually don't know them, they feel like, for them it's kind of like they're talking to a friend. Oh, do you have the impression?
Yeah, I cannot say it on behalf of the others, right? But at least the feedback I'm getting is that they have the feeling that they know me already, and that I usually am how they expect me to be, because I try to be approachable and easygoing, right? And no matter if it's any kind of seniority in their job or any kind of background they have in terms of different industries, I always have an open mind, right? And I kind of painted myself in the corner there too, because I wrote books about the human part of data so much, right? And besides it always having been my passion to be inclusive and empathetic about people, now even more, I feel like I need to role model it, right? Because I literally wrote books about it. So who, if not me, should be acting the right way? And it's not difficult for me though, right? I think this is something that always has been part of me. So I'm just applying it to work more now, and being just a good listener, being open-minded and being able to have a right conversation with people. That's always close to my heart. And I do it for everyone, including people that just recognize me at conferences or something. I would have that kind of conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like what you just said, that it comes for you a little bit natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is what people can see. Yeah. That it's authentic. It's not kind of played in a way. And people see genuinely that you care and that you are approachable. So maybe I can already start here asking my first question.
Sure.
Because as we said, you are born and raised in Berlin, but then you not only have lived in Berlin, you also have lived in different parts of Germany, and you have also lived and worked for global companies, and also I think you spent some time in China, yeah, and now you're also traveling a lot around the world due to your profession. So how much these different cultures, I mean, you also have a cultural background due to your parents, the Chinese or Hong Kong background that you have. So how much have these different cultures shaped your understanding or the way you see data governance, not just as a technical framework or capability, but as you said, like very much also something that is based on human nature and a cultural practice?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that when dealing with different cultures, I realized that you never can just assume what certain behavior and certain statements mean, right? There's always some context in it that is related to the culture. And let's take the simple example of group dynamics and finding a decision and consensus, right? And I noticed, for example, when working in China, that finding a consensus in a group is very easy, but then people might not follow up on the consensus. It's simply because the harmony is a little bit more preferred and nobody wants to speak up negatively in a group setting. But if you would then have one-on-one conversations, you would find out what does it mean. On the other hand, in more Western cultures, it feels like people are rejecting a point just to reject it too, right? They need to show that they're expert at something. It's much more individualistic, and they want to actually stand out of the crowd, right? And then you have the disagreement that shouldn't have been a disagreement too, right? In the extreme, but it's much more louder in a group dynamic because there are always going to be people that speak up. And then it comes to the point where you bring people from different backgrounds together, and then it might look like that the people who are more standing out are overruling the people that are not talking at all, right? But they all have valid opinions, right? And I realized that in data governance, you have a lot of disagreements. You have a lot of things you need to make decisions on, and it's always difficult decisions like ownership or business rules and whatever, how you move forward. And if you don't find that consensus and agreement in the right way, then it will hit you back afterwards because people are going to silently sabotaging things. People are not going to stick to the decision that was being made. Things are not going to move forward and you don't know why. It's all ending up in this human behavior because you didn't recognize the challenges that were there. And that's, I think, a much bigger topic because to actually deal with that, you need to start understanding the different backgrounds of the people. And you need to recognize that different behavior for different people means different things. And you need to identify what are the red flags or the kind of trigger points where you have to act in a certain way. And that takes a lot of time. But you'd rather want to invest that time early on towards the agreement than afterwards having to investigate what went wrong, because that takes always a lot more time. And I also feel like there's always a first chance to leave an impression, right? And if you build a trustworthy impression first for yourself, that you're willing to listen, you're willing to understand others, then they can proactively come to you too. But if you first make an impression of being inauthentic or you just want to quickly get results and not mind about what everyone's thinking, then you need to actually revert that image too afterwards, and you need to then clean it up again or kind of change your impression, and that's also hard. So I always feel like, right, let's do it and be human-centric from the beginning and not do it afterwards, because then it's much harder to kind of change your first impression than before.
Yeah, I think you touched a lot of points already that we will definitely go deeper into. Yeah,
Sure.
But I like very much what you said, that, right, you mentioned your time at Adidas where you were coming from consumer analytics, And then you were leading more to product data governance. Yeah. And that it is actually more than just reporting, I would call it. Yeah.
Right.
So, and that the brand is actually making global decisions based on these key figures and insights that you provide. Can you maybe take us a little bit on your process here? Where do you actually realize, hey, this is much bigger than just numbers, yeah, and just some figures that gives us indications of increase and decrease or something like this? Because there should have been somehow a moment where you thought like, yeah, as you mentioned, like, hey, this is more, yeah?
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's the framework I used at least always. I always differentiated between and the what and the why.
Yeah.
And the what would be the metrics, right?
Yeah.
You look at metrics, they go up or down, and they might correlate or not, but it doesn't tell you the why. The why is something that, at least until then, was always a human interpretation of why it would be that way.
Yeah.
And I always made a point that just looking at a dashboard is not enough because you don't know why the numbers are going up or down, right? We can report everything we want, but if you don't know how you can make it better, then what's the point of reporting it, right?
Yeah.
So the why then became a bigger thing because I always realized the why needs also the subject matter expertise, not just the data expertise, right? You need to understand what's behind the numbers and how you actually can have an influence on the numbers going up or down and what the decisions are that you can take to do it. And that made me realize that I need to spend more time with my marketing stakeholders. I let my team also spend more time with them so we learn more about how they work and not just say that they need to be more data literate, but we actually should invest the time to become more marketing literate too. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how I think a great model of collaboration happened, where we became equals, right, in that collaboration, and not just a service function that gives dashboards to them, but we want to make sure that we are making the best decisions together to actually increase our marketing effectiveness, for example. So I think that's what really came together there. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you bring in the literacy aspect and that you don't differentiate it per se and say like this is data literacy, this is and now you need to gain the data literacy because now we're all data informed, data driven, data centric, whatever it is, yeah, or AI. True. Now, yeah, you actually said, hold on, yeah, we have to put it in the context of the functional unit, which is in your case here marketing,
right,
and addressing those consumers or maybe data creators even, yeah, first, to then really have an impact with the reports that you generate. So would you say it is fair to say if you want to gain your consumer trust, you first have to gain the trust of your internal consumers, and that is already kind of what data and AI teams have to realize, yeah, that these are your probably first stakeholder group that you need to bring on board.
Yes, I definitely think so. I think the reason why I think so is I realized that the trust in people is very closely connected to the trust in a system or in a tool that a team is running, right? So let's assume that there's a data set that's 100% correct and everything is super high quality, right? But if there was at some point a loss in the trust into the team that's providing it, then there's a bias towards that data set, right? Because it looks right, but how can I be sure that the team behind this is actually reliable because they weren't reliable before? I'm still not sure if I should use the data, right? That's kind of the effect. And it goes both ways too, right? Because if the data is not correct once, twice, and the third time, then you lose the trust in the team again. So it's very much connected. So if you don't make the effort to build that trust on a human level, then you're missing out on it because it makes your data look bad too, right? If what you're providing. So in a way, that collaboration aspect is really important because it's the only way to ensure that even the data is being used then as at maximum and that it's driving as much value as it can. But it would be so sad, right? If only because there was a disappointment in a certain team that it caused you to make less data-driven decisions finally, right? So that's why I think this whole making internal customers happy is truly important, because then actually the team that is then using the data can make the external customers happy too. And there's a chain of trust that then continues.
So now at Thoughtworks, I can imagine you've been speaking to a lot of decision makers, C-levels, managing directors, and so on. So how can we imagine the conversations go? Hey, Mr. Feng, we are having an AI roadmap. Now tell us how to get AI ready.
Yeah.
What technological solutions do we need? Tell us.
Right. Yeah.
Is that the scenario that occurs quite often?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Probably in our very first conversation, yes.
Yeah.
But at least my big experience is the decision makers, the more senior they are, the more they naturally realize it's not only a technology game.
Okay.
And the reason is they probably tried already to just technology first, but realize they're failing. And that's why they now need support to find out what actually goes wrong and how they can actually take care of the other aspects besides technology. So it very quickly goes into the conversation of, okay, then tell me what were the biggest problems so far. And it's usually become an investigation game, right? It's like, okay, tell me what the symptoms are of where you see it's not going right, and we can together find out what the root causes of it are. They're usually pretty deep. Then you have cultural aspects of it, right? Of how collaboration cross-functionally is incentivized or not, or how value thinking is maybe not always top of mind from a lot of teams, or how technology was introduced without any stakeholder feedback. It was just forced on them and nobody wants to use it. There are many reasons why it doesn't work, right? And finding out the reasons then makes the stakeholders pretty grateful afterwards. But it takes that sometimes an outsider view to actually help you hold up a mirror to then tell you, okay, look at all of the things. Those are indicators for this not going well. Let's work on this, right? This is usually how the conversations go.
I'm glad that you're saying that, a lot of decision makers are nowadays aware of the fact that it's much more than just the tech stack that needs to be considered. Because as you said, that was the driving force behind of transformation the last years and decades. And I would still say a lot of companies still have it somehow in front of their eyes. But as you mentioned, because of the failure of it, or maybe the exhaustive amount of time that you took to get where you are now, because you were so application centric, they kind of reflected and realized that that's probably not the way to go. And now you bring in a framework, I would assume, that allows you to really assess then this human aspects. And I find it very interesting because I would claim that a lot of external advisors still come with reference models and good practices, if we can call it that way, that are not much addressing maybe behavior, culture, philosophy, habits, and so on. So again, was it really your natural instinct, the way you just function with your head and heart, that leads you to the fact that, hey, we always have to assess this? Or was it kind of evolving by time?
Right. It's a good question. I would say that the 5 C's framework that you're referring to, right? I did only come up with it for the book, but the different smaller elements of it all, I had more naturally ingrained in my practices and how I would show up at work. And the 5 C's I did do only to have like a memorable and easily accessible framework for it, to group it all under. And luckily it works, right? It's something that people can remember and that actually can lead to some actions. But it all is rooted in either me having put thought into it and doing it correctly, in my point of view, or I made a mistake and then I learned from it and I realized I had to do it a different way. So then I actually would do it in the right way. And it's like the combination of the two, right? So the things that I already considered important, and things that I would learn from mistakes from, basically.
Okay, you just mentioned your 5C framework. Yeah. So let's focus on the framework. I think it's worth to go deeper into your framework. So the 5Cs, they stand for competence, collaboration, communication, creativity, and conscious.
Yes.
That's already, if you reflect deeper to it, like each of these 5Cs bring in a huge depth, and you could, people who know me, like I like to philosoph, to be a little bit of a philosophical person. I could really go deep into each of them. Yeah. So, which of these C's, if you have to pick one, is probably the most misunderstood or misused one? Yeah.
Misunderstood or misused? I would say creativity is usually where I have the most discussions on, simply because for many people that hear about the framework for the first time, they don't know why it's in there, right? So it's a little bit the odd one out in that framework.
Okay.
But I have a really strong point for this, right? Because creativity is, for me, the human basis for innovation, right? So if you talk about organizational innovation, it always starts with good ideas first, right? Something that you want to make new, and you put it to practice, and then you innovate, basically. And it also means then it's about psychological safety, it's about experimentation culture, et cetera, that you're allowed to have new ideas and you're allowed to try it out to then drive that innovation. And especially in the data and AI space, it's so important to have people that are proactively bringing up new ideas, right? You cannot just react always to the market. You need to also proactively think what's right for your own organization to do it. So I have a lot of debates on it, and that's why I think the misconception is that creativity is all about the arts, right? It's about having ideas to draw or like make music or be a poet. But I mean it really in a way of applying it to work, right? Of having that as a human muscle to apply it to the day-to-day job and not just stick to the status quo, but proactively drive new ideas to actually make it work. And I think we could all do a lot more than that, right? I think especially in a lot of industries where it has been existing for a long time, there seems to be a culture sometimes that we have always been doing this way. Why should we change? But there's always a reason to change, right?
Yes,
so it's just about picking the
Yeah.
right ways to change for the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why creativity is probably a misunderstood or even misused one. I think a lot of people are maybe looking what others are doing
Yeah,
when it comes to creativity. Yeah, and then they say like, oh, we're gonna do the same.
Yeah.
Maybe we do an animated video. Maybe we do a
True.
a cartoon, a magazine. Yeah, some events, this and that, and that's it. That's the level of creativity. We
Yeah.
copy what the others are doing.
Right.
But based on your experience, what is maybe a not so difficult and already good creative way of addressing then creativity within an organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it really is a bottom up and a top down question, I would say, right? So bottom up is that you would hire the right talent and encourage them to be creative, right? You bring those people in that have ideas and they have been doing things differently in a way and they want to drive things. And top down is really the encouragement and allowing the people and giving the right environment for people to be creative in, right? To, for example, not just 100% make people only be business as usual, but have a small part of the time and the resource allocated to be innovative and try out new ideas too, right? And those are conscious choices to be made, and they go all the way up, right? So do we want to encourage innovation? Then let's make sure we have the time for it, because we cannot expect people out of the good of their hearts to just do it outside of their working hours, right? We need to reward them for being creative too. And that's something that often gets lost, right? That creativity takes time and innovation takes time too. If you just block people 100% to deliver things, they're not going to be creative, right? They're busy enough to deliver. They're not going to have a space to think about new stuff. So I think just being conscious and encouraging people and then having the right people taking that encouragement to be active, that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's a really great answer, because you highlighting here that the circumstances, the environment, the atmosphere has to be there to be then creative. So, as you said, a lot of people may be stuck in old habits and patterns, how they were doing it, like we used to do it. Like that's the sentence that heavily has been said, at least to us, apparently.
Right.
Yeah? And so providing them the room to allow them to pause, to reflect, and let the creativity then shine in being then innovative is already something that a lot of companies probably would skip. And it's a little bit, again, like very mechanically addressed, like you need to be now creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Sure.
it's a really good answer. Let's stay on the 5 C's. So you said creativity is the one which is probably misunderstood. What is there a C that is a little bit like the hidden C? So a little bit like holding quietly the other C's together, making them work. Yeah.
Right. I would say it's probably collaboration, but it's not really hidden. I think it's clear for everyone that it's the most important part of it all.
Yeah.
It's also the longest chapter in my book, too, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really the part that most people get wrong, that causes most things to break in data.
Yeah.
But it's, of course, the thing that holds everything together, right?
Yeah.
Because we all know that for data and AI to be valuable, you need different people from different organizations or parts of the organization to work together. But there are so many things that can make it go wrong, right? Like teams having different goals, being incentivized by different things, not having the exact right knowledge to work together, having a certain culture where it's not about actually listening to each other, but it's more transactional. There's so many things coming together. So it is truly the glue then in the end, right? Because without collaboration, none of the other C's can actually be impactful either if you don't do it together, right? So that's kind of the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why you saying that, and I think collaboration is definitely then the glue, as you said, to keep the C's intact and working. When I read your book, I can tell you which of the C's is my choice. It's conscious, because when I read your book, and I was reflecting on the C's. And that's why I wanted to ask you for your opinion. I think conscious is being, in a way, self-aware, self-reflected, pausing on all the C's. So how do I want to address communication? Yeah, consciously. How do I want to communicate so that I and the other, as you said, have room to share their competences, their skill set, and also consciously, as you mentioned, giving room for creativity.
Right.
So it's intangible in a way.
Yes, I see what you're
like
saying.
More than the others. So I thought, consciousness is probably something that in a lot of transformation and interactions is a little bit of not fully addressed in a way. Yeah.
It's a really good question. I think this is what I'm thinking, right? So, to be really human-centric, you need to almost show your personality and be a little bit vulnerable, right? You need to actually let the human being in you out and treat others that are human beings as real human beings and not just anonymous collaborators that you can somehow treat however you want. But in many professions, like, for example, life or death situation professions like doctors, it's for them healthier to detach a little bit, right? Because if you think about the outcomes of life and death all the time, it's going to overwhelm them a lot. But in data professions, it's almost the opposite, because you can hide behind the screen and just have like only tables and numbers, and you think, I don't deal with any human beings, and forget about that it's for human beings and you're working with other human beings to make it work. So you almost have to attach yourself more to it. So I think somewhere in there's a balance, right? So where it's not about you getting emotionally overwhelmed every day by the data work and you feel too much for the people that you're working with, but also not like detach completely and only treat it objectively, but recognize that there are human beings that you do it for and do it with, and then find the balance there. And part of it is to be clear about yourself, right? Am I doing it too much or too little right now? And in what direction should I go for? A way forward is, of course, to, I think, ask for feedback too, right? I know it's hard to have that conversation, because when you ask for feedback, you make yourself vulnerable again, and you have to expect not all the feedback to be positive, right? So you always have to count on also things that you can improve. But that's what the point is, right? And at least I think that if you proactively ask for feedback, people are going to be nicer to you than if you don't ask for it and they feel the need at some point to give you feedback. Then it usually doesn't go well, right? Then it's probably an escalation already. So I think that would be the right first step, to be conscious, right, about yourself and start your journey of being more conscious.
Yeah, I mean, very true. And I think, it starts always with yourself, as you said. And it means also recognizing your own vulnerability.
Yes.
Yeah. And why you are maybe also in that sense vulnerable in that area or in certain aspects and so on. And we live in such a fast moving time that I think a lot of humans are kind of don't find the time or take the time or prioritize the time to really address that. And as I said, when I read your book, and I reflected on myself, like also, and that's maybe a reason why I choose also consciousness, is because when I go into these companies, and they have obviously expectations, so most of the time was we don't know how to address it, we have maybe even failed, we need answers. So you are, as you mentioned, the external advisor, and some would say prophet, that comes in and is then promising which direction they should go. So obviously this is also attached with a certain level of responsibility that you need to meet. So consciously making yourself aware of the opponent, the persons that you sit in front of you, and assessing where are they really, what's their starting point, and what kind of luggage do they bring to this conversation?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, I can imagine I can wake you up at 3:30 a.m., any time zone of the world, and I can say, Tiankai, explain to me computational governance.
Yeah, true.
And you can give me a long, in-depth answer to it. But that's not it, as you said. So it's the human-centric means consciously addressing where are they, what do they need, what level of understanding do they bring, and what got them to having now these interest in talking to me or collaborating with me. Is it?
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. But also, it's not too different if you're an external supporter or you have an internal collaborator. I think it's all the same starting point that makes it important.
True.
Because in the end, good collaboration always starts with understanding what's in it for them rather than what's in it for you, right? And no matter if I'm an external consultant or if I'm an internal collaborator, I learned that I would not start conversations with, this is what I will offer you and this is what I'm going to do to help you. But I would first not talk about what I'm going to do at all. I will first ask, what's going on with you right now? Like, what are your pain points? What frustrates you in a day-to-day? Where do you need help, right? And then I would go back and make up my mind about how I can help that person the best way and come with the right tailored answer for them to then say, and this is how I'm going to help you, but I need your help to do it together. I cannot do it alone. And that's a much better way because it showed that I listened, right? I didn't just assume what their problems are and where they come from. I actually made the effort of understanding them first to then bring what's exactly the right thing for them. And I mean, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, right? Sometimes it's just reframing what I anyway wanted to say, but in a different way, and it works. Sometimes I have to overthink my whole solution because it's probably not the right approach and I need actually a new one.
Yeah.
So I made the effort to actually find a new approach to actually make it work. But you're right. It's all about consciously making sure that I don't only understand myself, but understand the other side deeper before I make any judgment and any decision.
Let's continue on what you said, and address a little bit the paradox of data strategies, which is dealing with numbers versus behavior in a way. Numbers are telling one story or many stories.
Yes.
Yeah. The question is now, what do you think? Because is it really like if you create a report or a dashboard, a KPI, and then you sitting down, so is there one story attached to it or is there many stories? And if there are many stories, is that maybe because of the ambiguity that people are maybe bringing then to their way of assessing and interpreting numbers?
That's a good point.
It's a bit philosophical.
There are many. I think there are many variables in all of this, right? I think if we start with the audience, the same data set might lead to different key takeaways for different audience members, right? Let's say some of them are focusing on one part of the numbers, which is more let's say in an e-commerce case, it's the conversion part of it because they are the ones who improve user experience, right? Another one is looking more into product management in which portfolio is offered on a website. So they look maybe more at the product sales overall. But it's all coming from this big e-commerce sales data set, for example. So they need to hear different stories anyway, because otherwise they don't know what to do with it. But then as someone who is curating the data and is actually creating the narrative around it, you can tell different stories of it too, right? First of all, in what order of you would tell a story about metrics, and also if you filter metrics and data points by different things or not, right? So you can choose how to tell a story too. And you can also decide to show certain metrics while you don't show other metrics because it's too much. So you would make already a choice how to do it. So yes, I think one data set will create a lot of different stories. But the key is not identifying how many stories are possible, right? It's more about choosing the one story that has the most impact, because in the end, you want it to convince people to take certain actions. And that's all you should focus on when choosing the story you want to tell.
I fully agree with you. So it's focusing on one story that you want to share, making sure that people align with that, stick to it, and trusting then probably what comes out of it. So would you say that leaders secretly kind of prefer the illusion of there's a precision in numbers, even if maybe it is wrong, but just to kind of avoid the messy reality that is then based on human behavior? Or would you say like, no, they're actually fully aware of it and they want to tackle that?
I think, precision of the data will never be irrelevant, I think, because on the one hand side, it makes sure that the person who's communicating the data is confident enough to say that this is the right data, right? Otherwise, they even doubt what they're saying because they don't know if the data is correct or not. So that really doesn't work well. And on the other hand, and that's the usual tension field between gut feeling and data, right? If the data is telling you something that is against what your gut feeling tells you, the natural human reaction is doubting where the data comes from and if the data is correct or not, right? It's never, oh, I made a mistake. I thought it would be this way. They were like, where does the data come from? Is it even correct? I don't trust the data, right? That's the first reaction because it's against your gut feeling. So backing it up with the right context to say it is precise because of this and that, and I can assure you that it's good enough to use to make decisions on, is in the benefit of everyone who's involved. So it needs to be part of it. And again, as you said already, trustworthiness, it's a big part of it all. And as soon as there's a track record of the data having led to the right decisions and the decision made a good impact, then the trust is going to be built. But precision will always be part of it because it's a standard you build, right? It's a standard of, this is our basic understanding that we can always trust the data when it comes from this team, and we can use it to make better decisions.
Tiankai, you, as I said, you were very busy the last months and wrote a second book, which is Humanizing AI. After humanizing data, you want to humanize AI.
Yeah.
What was the motivation to give now AI that attention with your book? And what is different to data that when it comes to AI that needed to be emphasized by you?
Yeah. So I think first of all, when I was writing Humanizing Data Strategy, I had already a lot of thoughts how it would impact AI as well, simply because it's so closely connected, right? So the idea for the second book was always already there, even after when I was writing the first one. I just needed the time and basically make the effort to write it. But also, I think the difference between data and AI is that for data, there was always a challenge for people to use it more, right? So that's why there were talks like data democratization and data literacy. It was always about let's have people use it more. But AI is almost the opposite because AI is everywhere already. Everyone knows ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot and stuff. So it's not about letting them use it more. It's actually letting them using it more wisely, right? Using it more for the right things and not using it for the wrong things. So how do we find the balance? So you don't outsource all of your brain to AI, but you still keep certain things on the human side while you outsource things and delegate to AI more. And on that note, I realized that data was in a way similar, and there were a lot of things that data has in common with AI. But for data, we only learned the hard way over the last decade or so how many mistakes we made to actually make it better. We don't have to make the same mistakes again, right? Let's learn from it and try to do AI in the right way from the get-go. It's now the right time to act accordingly to do it. And that's why I felt like this is now the right time to do it. We're still at the beginning of the AI revolution, I would say. Let's make the right human-centric decisions now. And that's why I wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, I can very much relate to what you're saying and what motivated you to drive the book. And what I found very interesting is that in your second book, you put much more attention on emotional intelligence, or emotional intelligence, and in that sense, empathy and also ethics. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So, as you said, like also before that AI, and I use this metaphor also quite heavily, is that AI is putting a mirror up and allows us now to see what we did when it came to data.
Right.
And Jovita was saying these are not only gaps that we see actually opportunities, and I like that she's positively framing it. And so how do you now try also with your book and your model to assess now and make the audience more aware of the necessity of emotional intelligence and empathy in the context of artificial intelligence, where, as you said, like you want to humanize it,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two aspects to it. One is that how much can we actually outsource and delegate to AI things that required our emotional intelligence before, right? And simple example, if you want to write an empathetic email to someone, then is it really the right choice to let ChatGPT write it for you? Or should you actually do it from the heart and come up with the own text of what you want to tell that person because you deeply understand the person, you want to show the deepest of empathy? And where do you draw the line, right? The other side of it, how much are we losing in emotional intelligence? And are we letting ourselves manipulated by AI, right? Because ChatGPT or Claude or any of those AI applications, they all have even personality traits a little bit, right? Like, for example, ChatGPT was famous for basically confirming and amplifying what you were saying and telling you how great you are and how right the choices you're making.
Yeah.
And if you're on the wrong path, then it can be really fatal to confirm your points of views and do the wrong things, right? So since a moral compass is not artificial, it's actually a very human thing. We can only let AI imitate it, but not really have it, right? Where do you draw the line there? And this is why I think if we start delegating and automating things that don't require emotional intelligence, like routine tasks and manual labor in many ways, sure, that's a good idea. But can we actually outsource the emotional intelligence part? I don't think so. So this is where we need to make conscious choices, where we use our head and heart more, right? And where we don't use it, because otherwise it's going to amplify the wrong things. And we might even learn from AI to do the wrong things because we got confirmed the wrong ideas and we make the wrong choices ourselves. And this is, I think, the real challenge there.
Oh man, you know that I agree very much with you here. Yeah, because I believe, I believe that we, when there was the .com kind of bubble in 2000, there was a lot of, again, hype, and then it kind of exploded into the faces of very many people and so on. And I was like, okay, maybe we have learned from that. And then I think how fast smartphones or social medias then in this combination were also shared around the globe for all age groups and different kind of people. I thought, wow, that's a bit too fast. Yeah. And with that move, we kind of just used, and we never had the guardrails really clear before we introduced it.
Right.
And I'm hesitant to see how it will be now with all these Gen AI solutions such as ChatGPT, Copilot, and so on, these chatbots, because as you said, you write emails, you write a poem with it for your mother, father, spouse, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
And the question is it still you?
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that sense, you already said it. So imitating human behavior, to what degree would you say it should imitate us as humans?
That's a great question. I mean, I think imitating human behavior is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because, as I said before, right, if it's for routine tasks and everything, if it learns as much as possible about every step of your process, then it's a good thing, because then it can adapt to whatever the things changes, and it can actually become more autonomous that way, and it takes stuff from us that we don't want to do anyway, and spend a lot of time on. On the other hand, it's really, even if it's learning from ours, I always say it's only learning from our output and not from our process, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
Everything we say and we write down is only what comes out of us, but we never documented what happens in our head. I mean, it's impossible, right? Even neuroscience is not that far to exactly know how you come up with new ideas and how the writing process is. And AI cannot learn from that because there's not any data points on it either, right? So it learns only from our outputs, but it doesn't imitate our process. So it will never actually imitate human decision making as we can do originally, right? That's why original thought is so impossible for an AI. Can only incrementally be original, right? And these kind of things. So this is why we can let it learn all at once from us, but it will never fully imitate who we are. So we should just choose wisely, I think, for what it is. I would say for productivity reasons, right? If you have a huge data set of your own writing style and you let it learn from it, so it can simply phrase like some automated emails, it's okay-ish, right? You have mass emails you have to do on a brand behavior, and you need to automate marketing emails maybe to millions of customers. Of course, that's fine, right? I mean, you have a brand voice, you can train it for a brand voice, and it's fine. But the more personal it gets and the more individual it gets for certain human communication, the more careful I think we should be. Because the imitation of us might even do the wrong things because it imitated the wrong things that you just haven't seen, because there are blind spots for us of what we might have not done right in the past.
Well, that was you had a brilliant. I mean, that was a brilliant sentence that you said. It's not able to imitate our process, and I think mostly here the thought process.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it can just imitate the output. So that, I think, is a very important differentiation and statement that you make, because the thought process is so much dependent on who you are.
Exactly.
And what is shaping your personality. And again, it's like being aware of that, your behavior, your mindset, your drivers and everything, and why you feel and behave in certain way. And these solutions cannot imitate that. They can just see your output, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
That's very deep. And something that is a strong part of your thought process is creating stories.
Yeah.
So storytelling is very much, again, we use the term heart, is at the heart of your approach.
Yes.
And can you share maybe a time where it was easier for you to maybe address to a group of decision makers or important audience something with a story and going beyond just the numbers, and where you could actually see in the faces of the audience, they got it, they understood what I was aiming here for. Do you have there something?
Yeah. Let me think. That there's a lot of, I think, occasions of that. I would say the simpler ones are when it's attached to my consumer insights days and marketing analytics, right? And I think one of the analysis that I did during the Adidas days was right after COVID, like in 2021, early in the year, there was a Valentine's Day campaign that we were supposed to do, right? And because COVID changed a lot of things, we wanted to do an analysis what consumers associate with Valentine's Day. And instead of only looking at Valentine's Day, we looked at the topic of love. But what changed to the year before COVID was there was a lot more about self-love than the love for others. There was a lot about take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, take care of your own physical health, right? Because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you be there for others? And the story then was basically, if we look at the change from year to year of how it changed from love for others to self-love, our story that how we communicate the Valentine's Day related products should be love yourself and love your others together. And we broadened the messaging right around the products, for example. So it was a lot about then mental health and also doing the right messaging around it to do it. And it was a nice one because it was surprising, but in a good way. I didn't have to convince people because to change their messaging, because for them, it was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And they also went through it themselves, right? Like we all had it in common that we all went through COVID and we all knew how hard it was to stay at home and be worried about the world and so on. And that the mental health just resonated with everyone. I was just able to tell the story around the consumer insights in the right way, to actually show data points and a narrative around it to convince everyone the right way to do it, right? So I think that was a really nice example of storytelling.
Yeah, very much. We play a game,
Nice.
And I asked you, like, what are your hobbies? What is shaping Tiankai beyond the actual work that you do? And the obvious choice would have been something related to music, but I think there's much more to you than the great artist you are when it comes to piano, keyboards, and in creating melodies and song texts. So there's another hobby that you have, which is gaming.
Right, yes.
Nintendo in particular.
Absolutely.
So I will share with you now and the audience a game I created for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're gonna adjust a little bit here now the room, and then we're gonna play.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Good. So Tiankai,
Mm-hmm.
I prepared a little game, the Super Tiankai Data and AI World. Yeah.
Love it.
So
Mm-hmm.
you are very passionate when it comes to Nintendo and Super Mario. So I thought, why don't create a version for you, my friend?
Absolutely. Awesome.
So let me shortly explain a little bit the game. So there are 5 levels. You have to go through all of these 5 levels.
Mm-hmm.
Behind the levels, there's maybe a power-ups situation, some hidden blocks, or a boss fight. Yeah, and you have to tackle these levels. You have to solve the challenge that is arising there, and you have to guide us with your strategy and how you create the trust and how you jump with creativity. So I'm very curious to see how you're gonna solve that game. And yeah, if everything is clear, we can jump straight into it.
Let's do it. I'm super excited.
So, level 1, the power up. In Mario, a power up can change everything. A mushroom makes you grow, a fire flower gives you new abilities. What's the one power up skill every data leader needs right now to thrive?
Great question. Does it have to be a Super Mario item?
Whatever you wish. It doesn't have to be.
I would say it's an empathy gummy bear.
An empathy gummy
So
bear.
gummy bear only because it's a candy, and I think it would go down easily, right, for people to eat. And empathy is simply because if you activate your empathy, right, you start feeling for the other side and you start deeply understanding the other side.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that skill, all the other decisions are going to be rooted, at least in the right way. So just overall, maybe even in the power-up world, it would power up all of the other abilities you already have because you make naturally the right choices. Yeah.
I can see the creativity.
Yeah.
I love it. Great. Okay, so that was level 1. So now you see the game, yeah,
Right.
and we jump straight into the next one. Level 2, the hidden block. Sometimes Mario jumps and hits a hidden block no one expected. In data and AI, what's the most surprising hidden obstacle or hidden opportunity you have discovered in your career?
Right. That's a good question. I think it would be the block of human resistance. Because the reason is it's always differently than you assume what causes the resistance, right? Simply said, some people never wanted to have what they do being transparent, right? And all of a sudden you create data around it and you make it measurable, but they never wanted to make it measurable in the first place, right? And all of a sudden they feel very much observed, monitored, micromanaged.
Yeah.
And that creates sometimes this tension. Other ones are where you want to automate things to make things more productive, but people don't want to actually change their jobs, right? They want to spend 40 hours a week manually moving Excel files, right, and merging them. And as soon as you then want to make it automated so they can focus on other things, they feel threatened because they're afraid of learning something new and having to do something else too. But why it's hidden is because people would never publicly admit it or say it out loud. You have to kind of sense it by talking to them and maybe ask the hard questions too of why they're not willing to do it. And only then you recognize the resistance. So you usually don't notice it until it's too late and you invested a lot of time in the new solution or the new concept and you realize some people are not getting along with it. So you have to then make the hard work.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I like that you highlighting, first of all, this this non-fact based, let's say,
Exactly.
restriction or lack of willingness to adapt.
Yeah.
And as you also said, like they are not maybe they are aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they try then to kind of hide it.
Exactly.
And, to sneak around it.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. It's a challenge in a lot of organization. Do you see that if we think a little bit in hierarchies, do you see it more on the lower or the operational level? Let's say that way, the operational level, more the tactical mid layer, or is it more on the higher leadership area? Where do you see that?
I think I have seen both, I would say, right? So operationally, of course, there's always the danger of things being automatable, and suddenly the operational people who have done it for many decades manually now don't need to do it anymore, but they actually wanted to keep on doing it. More strategically for the senior leader side or middle management leader side too, is if they build up like a long years of experience in a certain tool and now you want to replace that tool and they don't know the new tool at all, right? That happens often with like SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and now you want to move on to a more modern stack. And suddenly they're like, but I have 15 years of SAP experience. What am I doing now with all the experience if I don't do that, right? And that is tricky because those are the ones that then lash out too. Like, because then they upwards and downwards try to lash out at people to prove their importance in the organization. And that doesn't end well either, right? So yeah, it happens on different levels.
Level 3, my friend.
Yes.
So far, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Let's see how you're dealing with level 3, which is the boss fight. Every level ends with a boss fight. What's the toughest boss level challenge you have faced in data governance or AI adoption, and how did you beat the boss?
I think the toughest boss fight is always about ownership. I would say it will never be different. It's probably the same for data and AI nowadays. Who's owning it, right? So the accountability fight is never going to be easy. I think by now everyone who's working in the governance agrees that ownership has to sit within the business, right? But we all know that business doesn't want to have any accountability over data because it's too far from the day-to-day, right? And you always also need a more senior person with the right authority. So it always feels like a fight in the end. You need to uphill battle. You need to convince someone who doesn't want to do it to actually do it. And it takes a lot of negotiations and sometimes escalations to get there. And when you finally achieve it, it feels like you fought the boss and you finally finished the level. And it was such a hard game to beat. But I mean, that's I think the most important part, both in data governance or AI adoption. Same with AI models or AI applications being owned by someone and taking the full ownership for it. It's the same, right? And yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think it's never gonna be easy because it's always so many things coming together, and you expect one person to take ownership of it, which is not easy. But it is possible, right? It just takes a lot of efforts to get there. Yeah.
How often do you have this scenario where they don't want to take the ownership, but they also don't want anyone else to take the ownership?
Very often, right? It's I mean, it's a very similar behavior to talking about problems all the time, but don't want to have any solution ideas, right? It's like, no, this is too big of a problem. No, I don't have any solutions, but this is a problem, right? So you just kind of just dwell on it and on it and on it. So in the end, you'd still need to find a solution, right? And I think at some point, especially when it escalates and the problem becomes too big that everyone gets involved, and you say it's about accountability, someone making the right decisions, then at some point it's forced. But ideally you want to have it in consensus and not force on someone. So you make the best effort before that.
And I think it's also a process at the end. So you're not going to end up with we all would wish for it, but it's more or less never the reality that you have immediately your perfect ownership set up in place for your data domains, and so on. So it's a journey also in that sense to find, first of all, people who are willing to take it, in whatever shape it will be, and then slowly but steady you then can readjust the ownership and assign it maybe to other people or reshape the domain structures that you have in mind and so on. So I think that's also something that we have to kind of agree on, that you're not going to end up with the ideal solution immediately.
Right.
Yeah. Level 4, my friend.
Yeah.
Level 4, extra life. if you had an extra life in your career, the chance to replay one decision or moment, which one would you replay, and what would you do differently, if there is something?
Interesting. I think philosophically,
Yeah.
that implies that I regret something too, right? That's a really interesting question then. Because I think, like, being a reflective person as I am, right?
Yeah.
I think even the choices that I think were bad led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't done them in the wrong way, I wouldn't have learned from it, right?
Yeah.
So I always, and maybe it's also self-manipulation a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I tried to convince myself that everything happened for a reason. I made all the choices in the best way I could. And if I realize only in the hindsight that I did them wrong before, then I still learned from it and I made me a better person.
Yeah.
This having said, I don't know.
Yeah, if there's nothing, then it's all good.
Yeah, I'm
That's the
thinking maybe
difference.
even any small things. I mean, there might be one small thing, which is when I started my job in data governance, I should have started maybe communicating and breaking the, let's say, misconceptions on data governance a little bit earlier. I think I waited a little bit too long. I did finally address it and I made it work. But if I started to think about it a little bit earlier, maybe it would have been more effective. But then again, at least I did it when it was urgent. So it was kind of also, I did it when it was not too late. But I think if I had spent more time thinking about it before, I might have been more prepared for it. Yeah, that's maybe the only thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair statement to say that you grow with everything that you have experienced, and why going back. But
Right.
would you say you are someone that believes in destiny?
Wow. I would say sometimes yes, sometimes not. A destiny as in everything happens for a reason, yes. But I don't know what the reason is, right? So it's like, I think no matter what happens, it definitely guides me in a certain direction, but I don't know what that direction is.
Yeah.
So I go with the flow.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yes, there might be a destiny and there might be some bigger purpose, but I'm not thinking about it too much of what that is. It's just more trying to manage, right, within the things that I'm giving.
Okay, very good. Then let's move to the final question. Final level 5.
The war pipe, I like it.
The war pipe, exactly. Mario can take a war pipe to skip levels. If organizations could war pipe past one common data or AI mistake and go straight to the next stage, which mistake should they skip?
Good question. I think, the one mistake that's most common is when they invested in something and they realize they don't get any return out of it, right? And that happens very often in data and AI, where you make all these efforts. For example, data governance, you write all the policies and you assign all the accountabilities and you create all the data quality tools and data catalogs and put them all in, but then it doesn't lead to any value, right?
Yeah.
That's a common mistake because you basically didn't keep in mind what is solving the problems, right? You just thought about, let's do the right thing for our maturity assessment and we're just going to do it. And then we can say we're more mature, but the maturity doesn't mean you're actually valuable, right? About all of it. I think that's a mistake that I hope people would, or organizations could jump over, and they immediately know that's the right thing to think from a business use case point of view to solve actual business problems, rather than to just think we need to have a checklist of things we need to finish to be there. But it should all lead to some kind of a business purpose, right? And I think that would be the best war pipe.
Yeah, nothing to add here from my side. I think I second this, what you just said. I think if they would really see the bigger picture and see data and AI as a vehicle, as a tool to get more out of their business model or enhance their business model, whatever, that would be ideal. Yeah. So fully with you. So Tiankai, now we passed all 5 levels.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask you: do you think you look like this little Tiankai, super Tiankai?
I think I do. It's actually a much cuter version than I am in reality, so I can only agree with it, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so how often do you have still time? As you said, you said that you're gonna play sometimes with your kids. So is that the time where you still have the joy of playing?
Yes, I would say so. And the thing about Mario games too is that nowadays you don't have to spend that much time on it as in the past, right? Because before you would shut it down, you have to start off from scratch again. So the whole game from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now you can save games, right? And
Exactly.
a level is not that long. A level might be 3 minutes or something,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
done. So there, it's much easier to divide time for it,
Yeah.
right? You just like, I will play for the next 15 minutes and then I'm done, and you kind of go. And so
Yeah.
it's a nice distraction, and also being conscious of screen time for my kids, right?
Yeah.
I don't want them to spend hours with me staring on the screen.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna do it for a few minutes, and then it's also enough. So yeah, I think that's it. I come still to it. Yeah. Especially when the weather is bad outside, so
Yeah.
some like indoor activity, then it usually works.
Yeah. I mean, you live in the south of Germany. I think
Exactly.
the weather over there is much better than in the north
Yeah,
where I
that's
live.
true.
But
Still.
yeah, I can see the point of if you have bad weather days that you're gonna play at home. Nice. Okay. Then that was fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was very fun. Yeah.
And we go back to our segment 2, yeah,
Mhm.
and engage further in the topic.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Tiankai.
Cool.
All right. So Tiankai, coming back from Super Mario
Mm-hmm.
and the game to reality, and in reality, we face quite often conflicts.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we try to architecture trust and the transformation that we want actually organizations to engage with when it comes to data or AI adoption. So let me ask you. I mean, again, you worked across brands, across regions, industries, advised heavily here. Why does data and AI almost always sparks conflicts? Yeah, whether it's about, as you said, ownership. Yeah, I don't want to take over the ownership, but I also don't want anyone else to take the ownership. No, this should be decentralized. We should be free to do this and that. Hey, why is this not centrally done by you guys? Yeah, and governance, yeah, it's kind of blocking our innovation, yeah, and it's slowing us down. So there is a lot of bug or potential in a way in the system that leads to conflicts. And I would like to know from you,
Yeah.
why is it the case? What have you kind of found the reason, and how to maybe avoid it also?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the main reason is very much deeply rooted in human history too, which is that data is, I would call it raw information, basically, right? And information has always had a special place in human history, I would say, right? So just in our day to day, if I know more about something than you, right, then that causes an asymmetry in the information that we have, and that causes emotions for you too, right? Either you want to know what I know, right, or you know something else about it, and I have different informations about it. So we have different facts about what we're actually talking about. Or you want me to share with you in a certain way different things. Also, gossip comes from that point, right?
Yeah.
Where have you heard about this and this, and have you heard about that? It's always about information.
Yeah.
So information has always been associated with emotions, I think, right? So now we call it data, but in the end, it's also still
True.
about the information we gather from it. And it's a little bit like human history repeating itself, right? So now different departments have different levels of data they have access to. They know different things. What if the information that exists out there is different to the experience I gathered? Who should own information, right? Is that actually something that should be owned? And if it's owned, how do we ensure it's being spread in the right way? What do we do about disinformation information, right? Wrong quality data, wrong data versus correct data. It's so easy to put emotions to it as long as we believe that data is about information. And that's, I think, where it all comes from. And information then is really much connected to knowledge, right? And we're all very precious about our knowledge as human beings too, right? So having access to knowledge, memorizing knowledge, using the knowledge to do the right things is always closely connected to us to our personality and ourselves human beings. So all we do now is we translate it in a work environment, right? And we call it data and we call it data management and so on. But I think it's all rooted in the fact that it's about our own knowledge and our personalities too. So that's why we associate different things with it, and it's so easily to get triggered by things as well.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, and what I agree again very much what you're saying, and it kind of leads me to a question here, which is, as you said, I mean, we try to be very rational about it and create awareness about it, and then we even have frameworks and good practices that we try to kind of make organizations aware of it and so on. But I still have the question, if we try to keep away the illusion, or companies, when we're dealing with the companies, if they try to keep the illusion of harmony somehow alive. I mean, I give you a clear scenario. I mean, in Germany, we have a really strong, I would say, mid-sized company economy. Most or a lot of them are family-owned, even for decades or even centuries. Yeah, and then it's like, yeah, we are like a family here at the organization.
Right.
Yeah, we are like very close with each other. We have Christmas parties, summer parties. Yeah, a lot of my colleagues are my friends and this and that. So we have these image of we live in harmony. Yeah. And I'm wondering, then why is it that you having this deep struggle when it comes to then adapting to the necessity changes that you have to go through, and you have these hidden conflicts, yeah, that who is getting along with who, or who is blocking the other person for which reason and so on. So the question now here is again, are companies trying to keep this illusion alive? Would you say that is a real thing?
Yes. So I think definitely. I think this whole, of course, the concept of a company being a family is very much outdated, I feel like nowadays, simply because it's still a business in the end, and you're not actually taking care of each other as it of a family when it comes to hard decisions in the end, right? Plus, I always make the example, for a family, you don't really have the choice. And even families can be dysfunctional, right? So
Yes.
it's not necessarily anyway a good example, because you could also argue that a company is like a dysfunctional family, but then it's actually a bad example.
Yeah.
But either way, I think there's the topic of how we deal with conflict and disagreement generally in organization. And that's much deeper and much more of a nuanced conversation than saying if we are a family or not, or if we are data-driven or not, et cetera, or flat hierarchies or not. Because it comes down to culture and personalities, right? That I, for example, am a conflict-avoidant person, so I'm not like the active one to actually address conflict right away. It might dwell with me for a little bit until I cannot take it anymore, and then I would address it. Or it triggers something in me, then I would immediately address it. But I'm not the one looking for conflict, right? I would not like find the one thing I disagree with and then make it very loud and talk about. But other people are like that, right? They love to point out the disagreement and be really judgmental about it and really righteous about it. And then, no, this is not how we should do things, and do it in front of everyone. And you have different personalities shaped by the cultures and their own experiences all coming together. And some cultures then are more quiet about conflicts. Some cultures are more open and public about it. And all of that becomes that big field of how you generally deal with that topic. And yeah, so in the end, you're supposed to be professional at work, right? But we have still different meanings of what being professional means, because it also includes how much you show your personality and your emotions at work. Because if you show too much, then you have the bias of saying then you're not professional, right? If you show too much emotions and you get emotional about work, then you're like, can you please be more professional, right? Kind of view. But conflict is deeply emotional too, right? So finding that balance is very hard. And that, I think that's why it's hidden so often, because people don't know how they should behave, and everyone's doing their best to address the conflict or the disagreement in their own way.
Yeah, I think you pointing out here a lot of things again, and I would like to go deeper into companies are not a family at the end.
Yeah.
And the way you might, I mean, yes, family can be dysfunctional, but the way you would probably address issues within a family would be different than you do it at work.
Absolutely.
And when we talk about humanizing organizational culture or AI adaptation, then we have to talk about also cultures that,
Absolutely.
and cultural backgrounds that individuals bring with them to work, and what is maybe keeping them busy. So, and I mean, we were talking a little bit about your childhood, where you were born and raised, your background, and also my background, and so on. So we both know what it means to be through corporate world and not having the, I would say, average cultural background of the organization.
Agreed.
And not fitting to the majority of the template, let's say it that way. Yeah. And when we say like we want to humanize and we want to be people more emotional intelligence and so on, so should we talk more also then in the field of data and AI, where we try to be very fact-based and let's have capabilities addressed, and let's have conversations about governance, but also about tech stack and so on. But should we also maybe talk about stereotypes towards us, maybe racist behavior within organizations that we see? Because let's be real, we live in a time where we see a lot of right-oriented, right-wing mentality increasing within societies and countries and so on. So these people are working somewhere. They also work in corporations and companies, which we are dealing with on a daily basis. So my question is, if we want to solve conflicts and gain trust, how much has been your cultural background been something where you notice, hey, that's what has been said right now is only said because I am not fitting here the majority template or the German stereotype and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, to address it, right, I think there's still very much the common stereotype around Asians being conflict avoidant, right? And not only conflict avoidant, but also just being hardworking, but not actually leading, right? And being good yes-sayers and just doing the work, right? But I've never been that myself. And I think on the one hand side, that's my personality, but also because I experienced both cultures through my own family, but also being growing up in Germany, to find my own way in it. And along all of my career, I've experienced how my colleagues would be surprised of how I would behave. And they would see my name and see how I look like, right? Then I show up in a meeting for the first time for them. I'm very outgoing, I'm loud, I'm very I express myself very clearly about what I think is right and what is wrong. And that often led to the consequence that they, for a while, don't know how to deal with me because I don't fit into the pattern of their thoughts, right? Where they're like, I'm not fully Chinese, but also I'm not fully German. So who am I? How can they even treat me?
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing because in data, we do a lot of that pattern thinking, right? That we like to put things in boxes and we try to think in different categories. And if something doesn't fit into a category, at first it's just confusing, right? It's like, how am I supposed to deal with it? It doesn't make any sense. It's an outlier, right? What am I supposed to do with this? So I was always that outlier, right? And what it showed me, I think, was that how I basically am perceived by others made me think about how I would perceive the others myself. Where, I mean, just based on who I am, as I don't fit into that box so easily, I shouldn't consider to like put other people in boxes either that much, right? But at the same time, I think it was always about, just because they don't know how to deal with me, I can still do one approach towards them, and I can show them how I'm able to work with them. So I didn't become passive about it. I think I just became more proactive about it, to also show them who I am and where my boundaries are, where I agree and disagree with things in the ways of working, and just make it clear, and this is who I am, and that I'm a unique person. I mean, in the end, I hope that I'm breaking stereotypes in a way. I cannot say for sure, right? But I think that me being different than a certain category of people helps people to generally be more open-minded and see people who they are before they work with them, and they can then make the right choices when collaborating.
Yeah. I first of all, I appreciate your honesty and sharing that with us. I think that's beyond the normal podcast that you probably do when you invited by a colleague to talk about data and AI. But I think it's very important because you are, as I said, very much respected within our community, and you are shaping mindsets, and you can tell from the ground how things are. And I can agree with you that there is a certain understanding of who we should be and who should we represent. And sentences like, I mean the other Asians, not like you, Tiankai. Yeah.
Right.
So saying already that, is I don't know. I mean, I don't believe that when people say that they have bad intention.
Yeah.
But it's a lack of, again, like maybe lack of awareness what that actually means. Yeah, because you have, as you said, you have a clear definition of what is an Asian or what is someone. I mean, people find it difficult to put me in a box because I'm not Arab. Yeah. I'm also, okay, so you're not really Middle East.
Right.
Yeah, so you're coming more from more East, but you're not Asian, because Asian for me is people who come from maybe China and Japan. Yeah. But I said, yeah, but Afghanistan is in Asia. Yeah. So what do you mean? Or what do you actually mean? Yeah. And I said, like, and I grew up in Germany, and I have been even, did my school over there, my A level over there, my university. I even have been to German military, and I have served. So, so does that make me German? To what degree does it make me German, and so on? And but yet that's not visible for the people. Yeah.
Right.
What is visible for the people is the way we look, and the assumption that, as you said, you enter the room and they think like, do I have to switch now to English?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, it already starts there. And again, it's not maybe necessarily coming from bad intention, but it's there's an understanding of what someone should look like and behave like, and so on. And I think this is also then visible in the dealing that we do with people, or when we create, for example, AI models. Yeah, let's talk about that, because I know that there's a good example where a company was having soap disposal. Yeah, you know that example. Where they put the hand. And and then there was the soap coming out, and when a person which was more of a darker skin was putting the hand below,
It didn't recognize
it.
Yes.
So that's a bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what does it tell us if such a bias exists? What do you think, Tiankai?
Yeah, I mean, it's simply said, right? They didn't probably even test it with people with a colored skin, right? And they don't have any historical data about it, which is a much bigger issue, which means that as if like people with darker skin wouldn't wash their hands, right? They just didn't consider it and didn't even consider the implications of it. So that's a much bigger problem, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is one of the famous examples, right? Where bias is so ingrained in us. And also how we don't know all the blind spots from the past, right? That we just, without any problem, let AI learn from it and forget how many bad decisions we made in the past too, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but I mean, like, as someone that is shaping again, like leaders and transformation and so on, have you noticed in your professional life scenarios where people were hesitant to your opinion just because of the fact that you having maybe a different background?
Yes, I would say so. I
Mm.
mean, I think there were certain instances where I would disagree with something,
Mm-hmm.
but politely,
Mm.
and then I would get the feedback that I'm not collaborative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was simply because if a, let's say, Western-looking person would have done the same, they
Mm-hmm.
would have been collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
But because they expected something else from me as an Asian,
Mm-hmm.
then I seemed uncollaborative. But in the context of being Asian, right? Because
Mm.
you as an Asian, basically between the lines, are not supposed to disagree, but you disagree,
Mm.
so you are an uncollaborative Asian.
Mm.
And that, I think, happened especially in the beginning in more junior positions
Mm-hmm.
where also you have that hierarchy level even on top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like you are not supposed to reject anyway because you're on lower level. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes as an expert, I do think some things are wrong and I
Mm.
should voice it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think that that's something that was really interesting for me to deal with and
Mm.
to look at. Um, Another, and maybe it's a little bit different than my cultural heritage, but
Mm.
there was also some things now more recently where, because I like to make funny things about and approachable things about data and AI, right?
Yeah.
Where people would be surprised in a setting, in a group setting, that I would be serious about something. As in, like, I'm usually the one who makes fun of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I seem unusually serious about it. And I would then think, right, like, the
Yeah.
fact that I can make fun of something that resonates with people means I have serious thought about it, right? It's
Yeah.
not like being funny is excluding being serious
Yeah.
about things.
Yeah.
But that's how also personal branding plays a role, right? Like,
Yes.
if I'm famous for making songs and making jokes about it,
Yeah.
as if I cannot be serious about it. But of course I can be serious about things. Otherwise, I'm still a human being, right? I'm not just laughing through life. So there's so many ways you can put yourself in a box,
Yeah.
accidentally or coincidentally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you never know what goes through people's heads if they build up an image about you
Yeah.
and put you in a box again.
Yeah, I agree very much with you. I mean, I find it very, I mean, it tells a lot about the other side when they think like they have the right
Yeah, true.
to put you in a box and assume from you like, oh, okay, Tiankai is there, so now it will be fun, it will be entertaining.
Absolutely.
So as you said, like, it's not like that you're a 24/7 person who is cracking jokes the whole time. I mean, you have a serious position in one of the leading consultancy firms of global scale. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
you didn't get that job just by being only the fun guy.
Right.
So
Absolutely. I think also, I mean, you mentioned before, right, with
yeah,
should we switch to English now, right, when
yeah,
you go into a room? The other side of it, and you might have had
Yeah.
it too, is complimenting my German, right? Like, say,
yeah,
oh, your German is really good.
yeah,
And it's a hotly debated thing because, of course, for me, I was born and raised in Germany, right? So for me, having good German is not necessarily a good thing, and it feels a little bit like neglecting that I was born and raised there. So of course, my German would be native level because this is where I spend most of my life,
Yeah.
right? But when I would be talking to my parents or their generation,
Yeah.
they would be like, you should be proud of that because we work really hard to get to a good level of German and you get the compliment right away.
Exactly.
Isn't that a good thing? Because they don't understand how it feels like to be born and raised in Germany too, right?
Yeah.
And then I would also talk to Western friends about it
Mhm.
and they would kind of get it, but not really get it either because the whole feeling is a very unique experience where you're being complimented for something that you already are good at, and it's a little bit personal because of your heritage and assuming things about you too, right? And yeah, I mean, it's in a way, I'm not really triggered by it anymore, right? It's more of that having dealt with it and now taking it as a compliment and moving on, and people never mean badly with that sentence, right? And making peace with it. But I can only assume how much of these interactions happen for many people of unique backgrounds. And everyone at that point has probably unique background anyway, to have to deal with these kind of things that are somehow neglecting a part of them and they are just moving on and becoming resilient towards it.
I mean, I admire you that you have been able to go beyond that, because a lot of a lot of people are stuck in it, yes,
Yeah.
and it gets to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only when it comes to race or stereotypes, it also comes to aspects of diversity.
Right.
I mean, we talk a lot about women in data and AI.
Yes.
Yeah, and we do it rightfully so, yeah. As much as I wish there would be no necessity for it, there is a necessity for that. So I think also like, I think you and I are advocates of having more colleagues of different diverse background in our field, yeah. And I mean, I have been even told like, it's great that you are so proactive about it, and you try to give people, women, the chance to speak about it. I was like, why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Why is that even a topic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you shouldn't thank me for that, but still they do, because they see a lot of scenarios where it's not the case. Yeah?
Absolutely.
And so to move all of this now to a bit more to now our topic, which is how conflicts are recognizable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in that sense, when we deal with these topics, especially when we want to, we want to bring in new workforce, we want to bring in people from different cultural backgrounds, different skill set, competences, and so on. So, in that sense, the data and AI world is a village, as has been said many times.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there, based on your experience, a ritual or a form that you would explain to companies, or maybe suggest to them that they should have these kind of rituals, habits within the organization to go beyond, or being more aware of maybe stereotypes and bias in the build-up of frameworks, operating models, and also then when it comes to the database, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing to consider is that not everyone is necessarily willing to share a lot about their personal upbringing, right? So not everyone wants to talk about their ethnical background, or their family story and how they grew up. Some people want to keep it to themselves, and that's completely fine.
Sure.
But I think that doesn't mean that we cannot still try to get to know each other, just to make and perceive everyone around us as unique, right? So no matter what kind of collaboration it is, if it's a team or like a cross-functional team, I feel like before we talk about the content topics of what we need to work on, we should always spend time to get to know each other, right? And that can be like a simple icebreaker, right? Where we tell fun facts about ourselves that are not personal at all. It can be just like funny things that I don't usually tell a lot of people, but it's just something that's part of me to share with each other. It can talk about what we expect personally out of working on that project, right? This project is for me to learn new things, or this project is for me that I want to have an impact on certain things there. That could also help. But making the time, right? Not just jumping right into working together, but actually create like a basic understanding and trust first on understanding what drives us, because then we can intuitively approach each other with the right things and in the right way helping communicate. And I think it's one of those, a little bit of a lost art, because in the past, when there was a lot more on-site work, I think that happened more naturally. With remote working, especially in virtual environments, it doesn't feel like a necessity anymore. Often it just jumps into, let's have more productive virtual meetings and not spend tons of time anymore. And this is dangerous, right? I think even virtually you can still do it. And I understand that there's no water cooler talk and not like running into each other in the hallway anymore to have these conversations. But we should still make an effort to get to know each other and understand each other. And you can create your own rituals, but I think the common ground is to understand each other and have a feeling of mutual understanding.
Yeah, I like how you also here bring in the human nature back to the way we should collaborate, which is also in physical presence, to have also the room for non-verbal communication
Exactly.
and the coffee talks and the lunch or dinners that you might gonna have then when you have a workshop and so on.
Right.
So yeah, I would say it's a good starting point. Yeah, to also, if you collaborate, to know who is your opponent or the person that you have to work with. So how do you convince then the decision makers, the leaders, that having, also in that sense again, humanized the way we address the collaboration, also requires being honest in assessing the potential of these kind of conflicts, and being maybe neutral to them is actually a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's generally the question of what is the role of decision makers in managing conflicts, right? Because the more healthy way is that those people that have a disagreement or conflict can sort it out themselves, right? And they find some common grounds after speaking to each other and do it. And it should only involve the more senior person to then get involved because there cannot be found a disagreement, and then a hard choice needs to be made to actually make it work.
Yeah.
But what happens much more often though is that conflict is either not spoken about at all, and then it immediately escalates, right? And then they talk behind each other's back towards the leader, who then is saying, "Have you talked to each other?" And both would say, "No. I hope you can help me solve it." But that person cannot address it directly because those two people haven't even talked about it. So how do you manage it best?
Yeah.
But I think we need to create that culture, right? That if you disagree or have a conflict with someone, try to address it first. And you need to give that psychological safety too, to say, do it in a way, and maybe it helps to mediate or something, right? And to bring a third person in who's not necessarily hierarchically higher, but just someone who can help start out a conversation to address conflict in the right way. Dealing with conflicts in a more open and constructive way sometimes needs to be taught and coached too.
Yeah.
And I think we often underestimate how we need to actually do it and do it with intention. So in a way, I've seen situations, and I've experienced myself, bringing someone else in just to kind of help with conflict situations actually creates a great base for it, right? And then you can intuitively do it the right way. But it needs to be learned first by the people.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good statement that you make here, that it needs to be learned, and ideally you learn it as a kid. Yeah, it sounds maybe stupid, but you actually should learn to self-regulate, to be self-aware as a kid, and also in stressful situations. Yeah, and mentioning it maybe, discussing it maybe. So I think people have kind of, not everyone, but I mean, it sounds maybe more exaggerated than I actually mean it. But if you're dealing with conflicts are not per se bad. Yeah, conflicts should, as you said, they bring topics to the surface that you need to address, and then it's about the hygienes of conversations and discussions that should be kind of clear, how you can have a disagreement but still with respect.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that people nowadays, because for different reasons, have their challenges with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I completely agree. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one, because now also we both are parents, right? And I think we're making a lot of conscious or unconscious choice about how we educate our children. But I remember how I think at least what my parents taught me in some situations was just accept it and move on, right? Instead of address it in a constructive way and try to do your best to solve that conflict. But it doesn't sit right with me anymore, right? I cannot just accept things if I know in my heart that it's not the right choice.
Yeah.
And then you have that generational clash of the older generation with the younger generation.
Oh, yeah.
And we are trying to teach our children to now be outspoken about disagreement and so on. But it's almost like the whole world evolved into let's not all just accept things and follow the hierarchy and follow the bigger direction. Let's give everyone a voice, right? And let's not ignore everyone's different needs. But that means listening, but also speaking about the different needs on our own.
Yeah.
And that takes time, right? I mean, there's this one quote in Humanizing AI strategy, right? I call that technology changes fast, but humanity changes slow.
Yeah.
And this is where the biggest gap comes from.
Yeah.
Because we as human beings, it takes generations for us to change human behavior, right? Like
Exactly.
simply as simple as conflict management.
Yeah.
Of how much this takes us to actually change as a society.
Yeah.
But then technology is just bam, and now new model and faster and more computation power, all these kind of things. And that's hard for us, I think.
Tiankai, to come slowly to the end, what would be some, and maybe also as a kind of wrap up of our very long and conversation that we had, what would be some recommendations, some of your own experience that you would share with the audience, to the viewers and listeners, of these are maybe tools that helped you and would help maybe others in managing actually conflicts in a productive way?
Right. I would say that in any disagreement, right, don't only focus on your own point of view, but try to consider the other side's point of view, why they have a different opinion than you, or why they have a different fact maybe than you in their heads. And usually the context of it all makes you at least understand it. And as soon as you have a little bit of sympathy, it's easier to find common ground, right? Because at least some kind of human needs are always shared among everyone. And if you find that place of the person that disagrees with you, it's easier to then go one step towards them to actually make that conflict. I think another one is always having transparency about what drives us and why we would disagree. To show that more proactively leads the other person to also show that more transparently as well. And that usually helps to find that common understanding too. And I think finally, that's maybe a simple one, is if you feel like you're impulsively gonna react in a very emotional way, don't do it, right? Count to 10 or give yourself 30 minutes. Even better if you sleep over it one night before you react. It's always better, because I think we are breaking so many things impulsively by reacting very angrily on things. And then there are things we cannot take back. So just calm yourself down a little bit and know when you are triggered to then untrigger yourself a little bit. Take a break of something before react, because otherwise you might regret it. And I think we owe it to ourselves just to deal with it a little bit more rationally than completely emotionally.
Great insights again from you, Tiankai. If I can a little bit summarize our conversation, I think, first of all, let me thank you for the very honest, reflective conversations that we had. It was really a pleasure that you allowed me maybe here to share a facet or facets of you that go beyond than Tiankai, the respected data and AI professional, the great creative musician, the one with a lot of humor, but also Tiankai, who's a very reflected person when it comes to shaping personality, human nature, giving room to people, regardless of their background and what is shaping them. So I generally appreciate here the trust and the room that you gave me to have this conversation with you. And if I allow to maybe summarize one or two highlights for me, is when we talk about AI adoption and how much you want AI to imitate us. I think what you said is it can maybe imitate the output, but not the process, especially the thought process. And I find that very, very deep as a statement, because it tells us a lot that at the end, our thought process is based on emotions, on emotional intelligence that we bring, not only about us, but also about other persons and consumers, whether they are internal consumers or external consumers. And also that cultural intelligence is also part of emotional intelligence, or
Absolutely.
equally important too, because nowadays in the world that we are living in, stereotypes lead to cultural biases, and cultural biases might lead to biases in your data set.
Yeah.
And that is something that should be avoided.
Absolutely.
And you gave us a lot of great, I think, good practices and recommendations how we can solve it. And I think at the center of it is step by step.
Yeah.
Being aware of how to address and how to communicate based on your 5 C's, the framework that you have. And there are much more. And I hope that the audience is viewing and listening and leaving us comments, feedback to the conversation that we had. But now I would like to give you also the chance to maybe give a few final lines, whatever it is.
Thanks for the kind words and the great summary. I think the only thing I would add is that everything we talked about should not feel groundbreaking or be anything beyond what we usually do, because it's all rooted in us being human, right? I think
exactly
in the end, if we just bring our human traits more to work and we use it more consciously, then I think we can intuitively make better choices.
Yeah.
And I mean, you brought that great point of being reflective, right? The more reflected you are, not only about your good experiences, but also your bad experiences, the more you realize how others are going through similar things. And you can always build up and use that empathy to then drive the right choices and talk to them in the right way. No matter if it's about inclusivity or conflict management or removing bias, you can get to it easily by just being more reflected. I think that's a really good one.
Tiankai, before I say goodbye to you, we started the session with a fun fact about a river or water and data and AI, and now we're gonna close it with a analogy or metaphor. But this time you have to come up with one.
Okay.
So is there any analogy that you like to create between water, river, data, AI?
Interesting.
I mean, to be fair, you gave one right at the beginning when you talked about the quality of the Spree River.
Yes. I mean, we could probably bring it together with Super Mario, actually.
Please, go ahead.
Because Super Mario is by profession a plumber, right? And
Wow.
I think obviously you have the pipes and you have the pipelines in the data world.
Yeah.
And I think if plumbing data pipelines would be as fun as playing Super Mario, that everything would be great. So I would say, right, the more you can find the challenges and the rewards in the data work, I think the more fun you would have also doing the data jobs, just like in Super Mario.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Tiankai Feng, and he was, again, giving us great insights from Super Tiankai and his data and AI world. Tiankai, thank you very much for being part of our podcast. We stay in touch, and thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.